Is Kanye uncancelable?
Yes, some would say that he is uncancellable. So whereas someone like Kanye has this congruence between who he is and how he represents that brand, someone like Ellen has a complete gap between who she is and how she represents.
What makes a celebrity so darn likable?
Well, I love this question, and there's a couple of things. First of all, they have an emotional niche. They know that the way that they make people feel, and they use this to their advantage. That's the first thing. The second thing is usually they have some kind of contradiction in their brand. And by that, I mean Keanu Reeves, he's an action movie star, but Keanu Reeves is like a very gentle, generous person, and he acts way differently to what we expect an action movie star to act. This is a contradiction in his brand.
How can I be a category of one?
So,
You're listening to the Real Business Connections Network. Real Business Connections Network. Powered by Balbert Marketing, LLC. Subscribe now and check us out at realbusinessconnections.com. Enjoy the show.
So, Erica, I've been meaning to ask you this. What the heck is going on with Kanye West? I feel he's like a weed. He just keeps growing back. Then he gets canceled, plucked out, thrown in the trash. Then he appears somewhere else. What is going on? Is Kanye uncancelable? He's like a weed.
yes, some would say that he is uncancelable. I would definitely say that. And he has his talents in the brains of a generation of people. And I think it's because of how he has built his brand. It might not have been intentional. In fact, it probably wasn't. But Kanye has masterfully built this brand where there is no gap between what I call what Irving Goffman, a famous sociologist and psychologist, called a front stage self and a backstage self. So who he is in his authenticity is who he represents himself publicly as. And because there's no incongruence between those two things, front stage and backstage self, we just accept Kanye being Kanye. We knew what we were signed up for. We get it. We like it. And so people give him a pass, which is fascinating to me because I would say he's doing and saying terrible things, but he can't seem to disappear from the cultural consciousness. It's amazing.
So people actually resonate what he has to say.
Look, I hope that that's not the case. I hope that that people aren't resonating with what he has to say, but I think that he gets a bit of a pass. He's in people's pass basket because he's always built his brand around the fact he's a renegade. He is a problem maker. He is trouble. He is going to say and do the things that shock us. And so, if he says something that is racist or homophobic, people go, okay, well, we knew that was going to happen from Kanye. But if someone like, I don't know, Ellen DeGeneres said something racist and homophobic, that wouldn't be okay because that's not how she's built her brand. So really it's all in how strategically Kanye has built his brand.
Whether he knows it or not.
Whether he knows it or not. And, I used to be a big Kanye fan. I'm glad I'm not one of those people who got a Kanye tattoo when I was younger. And I know some people who did that regret it now. But yeah, I personally can't get around him, but I still think about him, which I think is really fascinating. He's still in my brain. He lives rent free in my head. And yeah, that says something about the emotional hole he's feeling for people.
So if anyone's wondering, why does Ben just bring up Kanye in the first sentence? You talked a little bit about this in your Theory of One YouTube channel, which we just met. I just found your YouTube channel 2 weeks ago and binged every single video. I mean this from the heart. I think it's my favorite small channel right now.
Oh my God, thank you.
I'm grabbing a little nugget from the channel. We can actually share the video in the notes so people can go check that out. But you hinted at Ellen. So Kanye is uncancelable, but then someone like Ellen is canceled. What's the difference there?
Well, it's because Ellen built a brand that was out of accordance with who she really was. And when that was revealed, it was unforgivable from her audience's perspective. So let me explain that better. Ellen built this brand on being nice, right? She literally, her show motto was be kind to one another. And so her audience knew and adored her for this person who championed kindness and acceptance. And that was her whole thing. So when it came out that Ellen was abusing staff and had created a toxic workplace where people felt unsafe and judged, it actually was completely the opposite of what Ellen had built her brand to be. So whereas someone like Kanye has this congruence between who he is and how he represents that brand, someone like Ellen has a complete gap between who she is and how she represents. And maybe she didn't in the beginning. Maybe she started and she really did champion kindness, but at some point the gap grew. And when it was revealed that one was not the other, it was unforgivable. That's why she was able to be cancelled, whereas Kanye can't get cancelled. Ellen gets cancelled for reportedly being kind of mean, and Kanye can't get cancelled for being, oh my God, being all of the, racist, sexist, homophobic, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
Kanye can't get cancelled for that. And look, I know it's nuanced, and I'm not in any way excusing Kanye's behavior, but it's a branding observation. The difference between these two people in their actions and whether they get cancelled or not. From my perspective, a lot of it comes down to brand, and that is the power of brand, being strategic about how you build your brand.
That's scary. And in a second, I'm going to put myself on blast because I'm struggling with alignment once in a while. But the person you say you are online, you present yourself to be, and the person in the back room, ideally is the exact same human being, and everyone's watching you at all times. That sounds bloody exhausting. There's always an eye on me. Like, I'm not perfect.
Imperfections are the point of a brand. We're at a point in culture where it is not only desired to have imperfections, but it is necessary to have imperfections filtered into your brand. Because if you are like Ellen and you try and build this perfect brand, it's going to screw you over later because it's just not reasonable to think that everyone can be perfect all the time. So what Kanye did, the strategy there is just filter your imperfections into your brand and get people to accept them, which I'm not recommending. You'd be Kanye, but it is important to be aware of your imperfections and then use them as a strategy in your brand.
Well, let me bring up my imperfections. We can quickly microanalyze me.
Right.
But so this podcast, Real Business Connections, was once called Rochester Business Connections. And very long story. I was in the music industry, this or that, was unemployed, pandemic. And I started a Rochester, New York business connection show because I needed some. I wasn't the expert on business. I wasn't the expert on Rochester. I wasn't the expert on connection. It has since built itself into a bigger brand. I've built my business, all these things, and people know like Ben, he's the connector. He knows all this stuff about marketing and business. And from day one, I know nothing, Erica. Like my one job is to show up, be curious, ask good questions, but connection is in the name. And people ask questions like, how do you connect better? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure that out. Or how do you have so many connections? I don't know. I feel like a tiny little fish some of the time. It's like, I don't know if this is just imposter syndrome, but I'm like, I built a brand that I actually don't know if I personally can live up to. It's bigger than me. It was almost an aspirational decision. It's not like I started with what I had. It started with how I aspired to be. And I still don't think I'm there. Do I have a problem here?
First of all, I don't think you have a problem here. I think the fact that you're being honest about this and vulnerable is the point. The fact that you feel this way, because I'm surprised by that, that it surprises me that you don't feel like an expert because you come off as an expert. And it kind of makes me feel warmer towards you that I know that you are sitting there feeling like a bit of imposter syndrome. And this isn't to say that people should like talk down on themselves if it's not truly how they feel.
All I said was not a tactic. Like, this is actually me, like
exactly.
wondering what I'm doing half the time.
Yes, exactly. And I think that sharing that with your audience it's not going to make you stop coming off as like someone who's got their shit together. It just makes me feel like I can relate to you more, because in the end, I think what people don't understand about branding and content creation is that, yes, it's about you, but it's about everyone else. And we're all just trying to project ourselves onto people. So in the end, if you can be a mirror for people and make them feel less alone, then you can be a brand and you can smash it. So that's what you just did to me. So I don't think you have a problem at all.
Let's take it to a new level that anyone can apply, because so anyone can be vulnerable. Anyone can be authentic. Anyone can be data driven. Anyone can be a marketer, a salesperson. Anyone can start a real estate business. But how do they become a category of one? Because there's 1 million people being vulnerable. There's 1 million people being authentic. There's 1 billion people on YouTube right now. How can I be a category of one? I just don't want to be some podcast guy that markets and talks about imposter syndrome here and then. Like, I actually want to stand out at a higher level than just that.
It's a really good question. So the way that I look at this, first of all, is beliefs. Because of what I just said, everyone's always looking to be a mirror to everyone else. So the best way to attract your people is to have a set of beliefs. And I know it sounds really simple, but actually it's not that intuitive when people first start this process of building their brand and creating content. People don't actually think to share their core beliefs. So when I'm working with someone, usually what I do first is understand their perspective. I actually have a framework called the PDF framework. And the first part of the process, the P, stands for perspective and positioning. So what I would do if I were trying to, again, become a category of one, is first understand the P, the perspective and positioning. So I'd sit down and understand what are my core guiding beliefs, the things that take me through the world, because these are actually one of the biggest differentiators, because no one sees the world like you do. There are other people who will make videos, but there's no one who can share them from exactly your perspective. It's your biggest moat. It's your biggest advantage, is your perspective. And then the D, that's differentiation. So D is understanding, okay, as you said, if there's 1,000 podcast guys out there, what is it that makes me different? And this might be, it might be your experience. It might be your vulnerabilities. It might be your beard. It might be a number of things. That's the D. You just got to think about it. Okay, what makes me differentiated? And then the F, how can I filter my brand identity? So the perspective, the differentiation, how can I filter that into a content strategy that is unique and represents my brand identity? So that's the overall process of becoming a category of one. It's a lot more nuanced than that, and it takes a lot of, it's funny. It feels like self-development when I work with people. There's a lot of those epiphanies where I point out a blind spot, and someone goes, "Oh yeah, that is what I'm really good at," because people spend a lot of time with their brilliance, so they often don't realize what it is that makes them brilliant. So yeah, that's the process.
You make it sound so easy.
Definitely not that easy.
And I don't know the whole story, but the short version, there was a company, Athletic Greens, and they rebranded to AG1 because they got a ton of bad press. And they just have a long-standing history of taking this green powder with all these great vegetables and all these great spirulina and all these things that are great for you, and jumping on podcasts and marketing them through podcasts. But it didn't work. They sold everybody on something that was basically not snake oil, but just a little bit above it, because all of the nutrients were getting manufactured out. All their promises were like not true. The research didn't back it, this and that. And I'm on a tangent. I got to look more into AG1, kind of a big scandal there. People still consume it, even though it's a trash product. But how do we know if it's working? Because you talk about self-development, I could, get clear on my PDF and start putting out brand content and creating something and building a brand. But how do I know if it's working? Because I can just keep running in the wrong direction. And then I either run off a cliff or I have to turn around and run back. How can I avoid running off that cliff and actually running in the right direction? How do I know if it's working?
Yeah, the first step to avoid running in the wrong direction is, as I said, to make it a belief-based content strategy, because you can't run in the wrong direction if they're your beliefs. So that's the first thing. A lot of people pick like a niche or a topic that they've never had an opinion about, they've never thought about in their lives, but it's going to be profitable. It'll get views. Why not pick it? Don't do that. That's how you run in the wrong direction. So that's the first thing. The second thing to avoid running in the wrong direction is making an emotion your foundation. Yes, a niche is important, but you also have to think about your emotional niche, because everyone who you ever meet naturally falls into an emotional niche. Like you make me feel calm. You make me feel analytical. So you are giving me a feeling right now, and I would say that's your emotional niche. And everyone who's anyone has an emotional niche. So again, you have to get clear on that to avoid running in the wrong direction. And the way that you can know that it's working is if you are getting, I'd say, gauging the sentiment. And this is a tricky analytic, because I know people love views and likes and they love to look at those vanity metrics, but sentiment is a little harder to track.
So you mentioned an analytical vibe. I want to step. The analytics in me is like, I want to add value, but I also want to make a emotional connection. I joked before, like I was telling Erica, I was telling you that like I binge your YouTube channel. It's bingeable right now. If anyone goes to the channel, it's bingeable right now. You have a perfect amount of content to binge. I binged your channel, but I'm not 100% sure I know anything about you. So I guess my first question is, where'd you learn all this stuff?
Thanks for pointing that out, because, you know, while I can preach that people should be able to get to know you and everything, sometimes I don't practice what I preach, because one of my flaws is that I hide behind information, because it's scary when people see you for you. So thank you for asking.
And
that.
Quickly, Erica, I want to say, like, part of what I love about your channel is it isn't a fluff fest. Like, it starts, you teach something, it ends. There's not some long-winded intro, outro. Like, I swear a lot of YouTubers are like, we need to do 11 minutes because the analytics say this, they're going to run an ad, and it's a fluff fest. You're straight to the point. But this podcast is going to be a fluff fest anyways. We're not going to get straight to the point. So I just wanted to compliment. That's part of what I love about your channel. But again, where are you learning this stuff? I want what you're having.
Well, thank you. Thank you, first of all. I think it's really what I try to do is just like give pure value and not any fluff. And where I learned that, it was drilled into me when I worked in radio. I started as a radio presenter, and I was a presenter for 6 years on a national radio station here in Australia. And there's this saying in radio, TSL, which is time spent listening. And my whole career, it was drilled into me, you got to increase TSL, increase TSL. And the way that you do this is you don't fluff, you tease, you hook them, then you reveal. You don't keep them hanging on for longer than that. So you go, right after this song, we're going to tell you X, Y, and Z. And you come back, and right after that song, you do tell them X, Y, Z. Because people are very, they'll disappear if you give them a reason. So that's where I think I learned this, like, this relentless pursuit of value and respecting the time of the viewer. I'd like to think I really do respect people's time. I'm not going to waste it with, I don't know, anything, but I could get better at letting people know me. So that's what I'll do, I guess. Started in radio. And that's where I picked up a lot of the ways of connecting with audiences. So I spent a lot of time, firstly, interviewing very famous people like Robert Pattinson, Billie Eilish. And I was just very fascinated by how these people impacted me, like their presence, how they came across, what it was that made them feel so iconic and so famous. Became very obsessed with that. But at the same time, I became obsessed with observing my reaction that I was getting from the audience, like how things that I was saying was impacting people. And one thing about Australian radio is that it's pretty cutthroat, especially on this particular station I was on. It's called Triple J, and it's known for being a youth broadcaster with a highly male demographic. And I was one part of a, female duo. And this isn't the only reason, of course, but I actually got a lot of people calling me cringe in the beginning of my career. A lot of people would say, "Oh my God, you're so cringe." So the way it works on radio, you get this text line, and while you're live on air, literally,
Oh, wow.
the mics go on, the red light is on. You go, "Good morning, you're on Triple J with Erica." And out of the corner of your eye, you see a text while you're live on air saying, "You're so cringe, shut up."
Oh, I would turn that off. I would find a way to turn that off. I don't read
it's
my
trial by,
comments though.
yeah, it's trial by fire. So,
Yeah.
I took that in the beginning of my career. I took that really hard. I thought, "Oh my God, cringe is the worst thing to be. Like, how embarrassing. I should try and change myself. I should try become more who they want me to be," which I tried to do for a few months there, but it made me even more miserable and it didn't seem to even work. So, while I was shrinking myself and trying, quote unquote, not to be cringe, all it did was made me unhappy and got me further away from who I really was. So one morning I woke up and I went, "Screw it. I'm just going to be cringe because, yes, I'm cringe, but I'm learning.
Mm.
And I don't want to be someone who's afraid to learn." So I just went all out and I figured out a lot of what my process is now, in, positioning people in their personal brand. I just tried to figure out who I was, what I stood for, what I stood against, what my perspectives and beliefs were, and tried to be unashamed in that. So yeah, I call it Cringe Mountain. I learned to climb Cringe Mountain, and I'm really glad I did. So after radio, I went into advertising where I applied some of this knowledge to branding, building global brands like Aldi, A2 Milk.
Mm.
And then I decided, you know what? Throughout this whole time, I'd always done content creation. I want to go into that and see if I can apply what I know from personal branding and global branding to help more people, content creators and business owners, figure out their category of one. So yeah, it's a speed run at my whole life.
I don't want to reopen any wounds, but why did they find you were cringe? Did you have like a fake radio voice? Like, "Oh, this is welcome to the radio." This is
No, I didn't. I think that I was learning how to be more like myself.
Mm.
And I think that, I want to take responsibility for my part, but I also want to say that the audience, there was a certain vibe from the audience sometimes that they weren't open to certain things. Like
Sure.
if I giggled too much, like if I laughed too much, that pissed people off. And fair enough, like maybe I was laughing about something that didn't appeal to them, that they weren't interested in. But this is kind of like what I think my superpower is. Like through that, I learned what is how to be relevant to people in the way that they want to be spoken to. Like I think that that's what I'm really good at gauging now is like, what do people care about?
Mm.
And how can I, not change myself to be more like that, but how can I position myself in a way that adds value to them in a way that they want to be spoken to? And it's a balance because I still have to be true to my personality and use that skill. But I guess that's really where I'm taking it with YouTube is like, I know that you care about this. I know this is valuable to you. So I'm going to be me, but deliver these concepts in a way that you want them delivered.
And you have a whole new audience, it sounds like. So you mentioned like the listenership at the radio station was kind of like younger boys, it seemed like.
Yeah.
Because-
Yeah. A lot of the demographic was, but it is probably partially that, but it's also partially the fact I probably wasn't very good yet.
Okay.
Like I wasn't who I am now then. Like I wasn't good at understanding how to speak to audiences and I wasn't good at making jokes and reading news stories. Like I got to call it how it was. I wasn't good enough yet, but that's okay because I was learning. I was just learning very publicly. Yes. Yeah. It was painful, but I'm really glad now that it happened.
Just a side note, I appreciate your accountability because I was about to just throw some shade and talk how these young boys leave the most ridiculous comments. And like, if you were to read a movie review and you saw it was like 11-year-old boy, you'd be like, oh, that's not someone that I would trust to leave a movie review. But everyone's got a movie review. So, but I appreciate your accountability, and you call it cringe mounting. So
Hmm.
what happens when you're at the top of the mountain?
Well, with Cringe Mountain, on the other side of Cringe Mountain is the land of cool. Everyone's trying to get to, right? But a little secret between you and I don't think anyone ever gets there. I think it's a mirage. And I think the further you walk up the mountain, the further away the land of cool gets. But having said that, I'm definitely not at Cringe Mountain Base Camp anymore. I'm well and truly on my climb. And I think as you climb, you realize that, these haters, the people that made fun of me on radio, I don't have any bad feelings towards them now because I know that with Cringe Mountain, no one who has done the climb
Mm.
will ever laugh at you. Like, no one will ever look back from in front of you up Cringe Mountain and laugh at you for climbing behind them. People will only laugh at you from the base camp of
Mm.
Cringe Mountain. So I look back and I go, that's fine. These guys, they were at the base camp of Cringe Mountain and they didn't get it. They didn't get what I'm trying to do. So I don't have any hard feelings towards them because they don't get it.
You don't get it.
They don't get it. It's
We,
fine.
we can maybe workshop this more offline, but this is coming to my mind because I was at a conference. The gentleman was called Justin Kavanaugh, and he actually had this drawn out like depiction on the screen. And there was the first mountain, and then you're at the top of the mountain, and then you see the zone of despair, I think he called it. Because
Oh
you're at the
yeah.
top of the mountain. Well, guess what happens? Then you see there's a whole new mountain. So to get to the next mountain, you actually end up going downwards to the zone of despair, and then you climb that baby again. And it's just like so frustrating, and that's why a lot of people quit at things. And he's like,
Mhm.
all you need to do is find a way to develop a bridge from one mountain to the next. And then it's not like you've hit the Mecca, but you avoid the zone of despair if you can bridge the gap between the first mountain and the second mountain. And that bridge could be just like a tool or a mentor, or I don't know what it is. I guess it's individualized, but it sucks when you get to the top and you realize you're still cringy. You're not as cool as you thought you were. And I don't want to go to the zone of despair. I want to skip that despair and level up with my cringe a little bit.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. I think, well, this might be controversial, but I think it's good to go through the valley of despair
Oh yeah.
personally. Yeah, I really do. And this is partially the curse of the expert. Like when you were saying before that you don't feel like an expert, in my head I was like, it's because you are an expert and experts don't feel like experts because they know too much, right? They know what they don't know.
The
But
imposters are the ones that don't have imposter syndrome.
yes, exactly. Exactly. So look, I think a little bit of going through that journey of feeling shit is important. Like I
Mm.
really do think that you got to feel that cringe and put yourself out there and be seen to get to where you want to go. But having said that, you can shortcut it absolutely by, as you said, working with mentors or reading, books from people who have done it in the past or surrounding yourself with people who understand the journey. There are lots of ways to dampen the feeling that you get. You don't have to go through the public humiliation ritual that I went through. But having said that, I think I'm glad I went through it. It's made me way more uh, capable and credible and determined. So there are pros and cons.
So I have two big categories that are on my mind. You can choose your own adventure. We can either shortcut YouTube because there's a certain process you seem to follow. We can break that down. That's a little more analytical or tactical. Or we could shortcut why the heck are some celebrities so darn likable or brands so darn likable? Which route should we take? Talk about a celebrity or talk about your YouTube channel?
Hmm. That's a really good question.
Or both?
I don't know. Well, I'd be happy with either. Is there one that you're leaning towards that you think would be better?
Let's do both if we have
Okay.
time to do both.
Yep.
So if the listener didn't get their one answer, they're going to have to continue to watch till it gets answered. But let's start with the celebrity. And I guess it could be a celebrity or a brand. But what makes a certain celebrity so darn likable? Like you can use Keanu Reeves because he's a great example because everyone loves him, or you can use something that maybe we wouldn't expect. But I just like what's his face? Wow, I guess you must not like him that much if I don't remember his name. But what makes a celebrity so darn likable?
Well, I love this question, and there's a couple of things. First of all, they have an emotional niche. They know that the way that they make people feel, and they use this to their advantage. That's the first thing. The second thing is usually they have some kind of contradiction in their brand. And by that, I mean, Keanu Reeves, he's an action movie star. You would expect him to be, fit the category of action movie star who's maybe a bit macho and like self-serving. Maybe, I'm stereotyping, but there is an idea that
bald, macho.
Yeah, like rough,
covered
not
in
very
blood.
Yeah, not super kind or, in touch with his feminine side or whatever. There's this idea that we have. But Keanu Reeves is like a very gentle, generous person, and he acts way differently to what we'd expect an action movie star to act. This is a contradiction in his brand. And a lot of the most famous people have a contradiction like this. Like Post Malone, the musician, he's covered in tattoos. He looks like he's about to bust out some heavy metal and, be a bit rough with it. But if you ever see Post Malone or listen to his music, you would understand he's angelic and he's got this incredibly goofy, silly, fun presence. Again, that's his contradiction that makes him really lovable. So quite often, people have a contradiction that makes them lovable. And then the third thing that I'll say, which is really core, is that they have some kind of enemy. And I know this sounds like a really negative approach, but it's not, because it's an ideological enemy. It's not a person. It's like something that they stand against, which is an idea. So some examples: Taylor Swift, her enemy is the cool girl. And anyone who loves Taylor Swift or listens to Taylor Swift, they understand that Taylor Swift stands against this mean, popular, cool girl. And so she attracts people who were maybe made to feel different in their lives, or made to feel like they were silly for loving what they loved, or, made to feel like they were the wallflower at the school dance. They didn't get, they weren't wearing the tight dress and they didn't get the attention. So she's got this audience of people who are united around this common enemy. So Taylor Swift isn't just Taylor Swift. She is a representation of an idea that everyone can resonate with. So those are I'd say the biggest things that make celebrities likable. They're founded in an emotional niche. They have some kind of contradiction, and they have an enemy that they rally their audiences against.
Love it. For some reason, I can't get my mind off Steph Curry, NBA basketball player, because he's always got a big smile on his face. He'll like be chewing on his mouth guard like right before he shoots. Like he looks like he's just playing street ball with his friends. But if you're on the other team, he's basically going to murder you on the scoreboard.
Exactly. That's his contradiction. That's a great example. And that, it makes it, it makes him so lovable. And it's funny because once you start noticing this, you see how often this is used in big movies and TV shows, like Shrek, for example. He is a contradiction. He's a big, scary ogre, but he is kind and sensitive. Or, in Legally Blonde, what's her name? The main character. Her whole character is built on a contradiction. She's a bimbo, and so people underestimate her, but she's the smartest person in the whole school. So again, it's the contradiction that makes her so lovable. I could go on forever pointing out.
I feel like there's like 20 years in a row where it's like not so attractive, we'll just call ugly guy, but with a big heart, and a really pretty girl that isn't a bitch, isn't mean, isn't so and so generic. But I feel like you turn on a sitcom, it was always like an ugly guy with a pretty girl, but they're perfect together because they both have a big heart.
Yes. Yeah. And they're tropes, and they are tropes for a reason, because they work, because they play with our emotions, right? Like, our brain uses heuristics to categorize the world around us.
Mm.
And we are category machines. Like, humans are great at putting people into categories. So when we see, a nerdy guy, we think, oh, loser. I don't, but people do. People think, oh, okay, a set of expectations around this person of how he's going to act. Same with the girl. She's pretty, so she must be X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
But if you can contradict those expectations authentically, then it makes people stop, pay attention, and be more open to forming an emotional connection.
So before we close with YouTube, the keyword there is authentically, but the question I'm asking is, how do I do that? I don't necessarily want to sit down with a pen and paper and be like, oh, so I'm this way. Let's just throw a contradiction in just because I know my audience will take a bite out of that. Like, how do I identify my contradictions if I have any, and or am I just boring? Is that an option as well?
Yeah, well, it's a really good question. So the first way I would say is to lean on your friends and family, because quite often your contradiction is just something that everyone knows about you, but because everyone's just known you for so long, no one really pointed out. So you can start to ask your friends, your family, say like, is there something about me that's like you'd expect me to be one way and then I'm the other? Like, is this something that you've noticed about me? You'd be amazed at how often people will come up with an answer. So that's one way. Lean on your friends and just ask that question. And then another way is to reflect on your position in your category and what the expectations of that category are versus you. So this is it's a really quick exercise you can do. Sit down with a pen and paper and write category, say podcaster. And then in one column on the left, expectations of a podcaster, one column of the right, say me. And then go line for line, write down what the expectations are of you as a podcaster in your category, and then what you are in reality. And just see if those things play off each other. And maybe you fit into all of the expectations. That's okay. You'd have to look somewhere else. But you'd probably find a contradiction of, okay, people expect podcasters to act one way. I act this way. That's interesting. How can I capitalize on that and make that more a part of my brand?
You got me thinking. So I'm almost wearing a black t-shirt I got a black t-shirt and a watch like every day, but that's kind of my camo, because anyone who knows me well knows I'm a hippie, and I camp and go to music festivals and was in the music industry for 10 years. And I'm a hippie in business. And I only own one suit and tie, and it was for my brother's wedding.
That's a contradiction, Ben. That's a perfect contradiction. If you went, okay, business is the category. Interesting. What do people expect out of businessmen? Suit and tie, a little bit slick, a little bit cutthroat. You're a hippie. You go to music festivals. You don't wear shoes. Great. You're the hippie businessman. That's exactly a contradiction. You can.
I gotta do a shoeless photo shoot for the next one. What is your contradiction?
Oh, this is such a good question. And you know what? It's so funny because I am working on this still. It's funny because a lot of the work that I do with people is I spot things that they can't see. And so it's almost like I need a me for me, because I have a lot of trouble seeing myself clearly, just like everyone does. So I think that my contradiction is something around the way that I subvert common topics. Like, you'd expect me to tell a story in a linear way and then I take it somewhere different, or you expect me, because I'm just like a nice white lady, to speak in a certain way, but then I'll say a bit of a rogue joke or something like that. Like, there are a few ways that I'm playing with it, but the answer is, Ben, I don't know. If you can clone me, can you get me to
Well,
do my incubator with me.
This is a fun segue too, because when I watch your channel, you're talking about a lot of celebrities, a lot of big names, and there's a lot of drama channels. And you're not assessing them from a pop standpoint at all. You're kind of taking psychology and marketing and applying it to these celebrities, which not many people do. Most people are talking about who's dating who or some drama or cheating. You're like, screw all that. Let's talk about what the heck's going on psychologically here. And I think that possibly is the zone of genius, and it is a contradiction as well.
Thank you.
Possibly.
That's a really interesting point. I know that I'm doing something that I haven't seen done. So that's a really helpful lead for me. I think, what I try to do is exactly as you said, like I'm not concerned with the drama really. I mean, sometimes it's fun to talk about, but what I am concerned with is why some people impact societies more than others. Like, what is it? What is it about some people that makes us stop and pay attention? That's what I'm fascinated by. And then how to use those insights in a way that feels real to each person.
So important. Nothing sucks more than when you talk and no one listens. You post and no one sees. You care, but no one else does. Like, that stinks.
Yeah. And it hurts me to see it because it doesn't have to be that way. Like, you can make people care about what you care about, but you just have to know a few things and be a bit strategic about it. But it is possible.
So we'll close with YouTube, but before we get there, how can I keep supporting you? I already binged the channel, so I'm just waiting for the next one. But you can subscribe to the channel. How else can we support Erica?
Thank you. Yeah, subscribe to Theory of One. I'm going to try and make videos every 2 weeks. At the moment is my goal. So really it's just hitting subscribe and liking the videos and watching them all the way through so that the algorithm feels happy. That's the way that you can support me best. I would love that. I mean, I think for me, where I'm heading is I just want to get my perspective out there because I genuinely think that it sounds so cheesy, but it can help a lot of people. Analyzing icons, brand icons, whether it's people or brands from the perspective of psychology and marketing. I think that's a perspective people need. Yeah, you can just support me by listening, I guess, at the moment.
Cool. And in the description, all the links, all the notes, the incubator, that's all going to be there. But hit subscribe. You can do it while we finish this. Hit subscribe on the channel as you go. What are you doing with your videos? Is there a specific template? So I haven't actually sat down and I just listened to them. Like, oh, this is good. But I didn't actually do an analysis. But I feel like you might think this, but it's actually this. And it's really not even what you think it is. And then you have these hooks and these thorough line. Are you following a template? Is it intuitive? How are you structuring these videos to be so much depth, but also so short simultaneously? I know that was a very thick question, but is there a structure?
No, there is a structure. So the overall structure I follow is first, I will just notice something out in the world. Usually my video ideas have been sitting with me for months because I've noticed something and I go, that's weird. I wonder why that is. So first stage for me is just to ponder on it and to notice it. But then when I actually get to writing the video, first, as all YouTube people say, you want to have the title and the thumbnail already decided before you start writing the video. So once I've got that decided, the kind of structure that I follow with writing the scripts is I'll ask a question in the intro, in the hook. And that question is the question I've been asking myself over the last few months. Why do people like Kanye not get cancelled where people like Ellen do? And that's an interesting question to me. I'll just put that as the question and the question is the hook. And then I'll hint at the answer and say, you might think it's X, but it's not. The real answer is something more interesting. And I'm going to tell you about it, give it a bit of a hook. And then I go into usually an example 1. And I like to think of the first example as something that's I want people to feel wait, why is she talking about that suddenly? And then I gradually join the points. That's what really gets me going, is if I can think of an example of the answer in something else in pop culture that you wouldn't expect. So that's, let me summarize. Question, hint at the answer, example 1, example 2, and then the psychology of it, and then the answer, really. And then an exercise is the overall structure. I don't know if that was helpful. It sounded a bit messy, but that's
No.
how I do our videos.
Next time I do a solo video, I'm just going to follow that.
Yeah.
And then you're just kind of like peace. Like your closing sentence is like one sentence and you're good to go.
Yeah, I think personally when I watch YouTube videos, as soon as I sense that it's ending, I'll click out of the video. So I just know it's not like I'm not going to keep you there longer than you have to be there. I'm just going to peace out and then see you later, you know? So that's another thing. I just don't want to ever waste anyone's time. But having talked to you, Ben, I think that I would like to try and get more of me into my content, because I'm a hypocrite if I don't do that. So it's something that I've gotten out of talking to you today, is that I probably could share more of me, and I'm going to try and do that. So thank you for the reminder.
Any clue how you're going to do that?
Yes. It's the dreaded every few minutes add in a little tidbit about me. I know exactly how to do it.
Yeah.
I just don't do it. So yeah, the strategy really is to every few minutes just add a little story or opinion from me, like a little fact, like an update about my life. I've just moved house. You might notice the background's different. It's because I got mold poisoning in my old house and I had to move, which is true. So that's an interesting thing that I should tell the audience that might make them feel like they know me.
Would you ever do like a full video that's just you?
I think I would, yeah, but I'm edging closer and closer to it, because, yeah, I know that as I said before, one of my vulnerabilities is that I hide behind my observations and opinions about other people, and it's not as easy to just let people see me. So I'm going to.
That's a great hook. That's your.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I teach this shit, and all of my clients, I'm like, you can do this, put yourself out there. But I am very aware that it's a thing that I do. So yeah, I'm edging closer to it. I'll start to share more of me and my story and my journey. I'm just going to get into it slowly.
I'm literally just trying to do 3 things here. 1, just friend to friend, like kind of push you a little bit to like see, is she going to do it? 2, build suspense for the listener to go subscribe to the channel and then pay attention to it. And 3, let's say you're a big superstar. I'm going to be like, look at this interview we did in 2025.
Okay, I like number 3. Let's go with all of them, but number 3, let's make that the goal. 100%.
Do you want to be a superstar?
I don't want to be a superstar. No. I don't want to be seen for me. Like I really like talking about ideas, and I really like guiding other people to be superstars. But yeah, me personally, I don't want to be famous just for the sake of being famous.
I struggle with this one myself, because let's say you have such a great impact that 100,000 people at a stadium want to see you speak, or 20 million people watch every one of your videos. Like, the superstardom comes with the impact. So there's like, is your impact capped unless you become a superstar? I struggle with this thought.
Yeah, I think that it's a good point. There's levels and kinds of fame. Like someone like, I don't know, Jennifer Lawrence, she's just famous. Like she's just a superstar for being Jennifer Lawrence, right? But someone like Gary Vee, he's kind of niche famous in that he's famous for his perspectives and opinions. Same with Alex Hormozy. I can see myself being more like okay with that kind of fame, where it's like you're famous because you give people new perspectives and they like you, but they also really like hearing what you think about the world. I think that's a very different kind of famous than just being seen and, people expecting you to be you, and that's the trick, right? That's kind of scares me a little bit. I don't want to do that, but I'm very happy to be up on a stage with a microphone talking about something. Like, I love that. That's where I thrive. So yeah, it's again, it's a bit of a contradiction. It's like me saying, I don't want to be famous, but then putting myself on YouTube and trying to get more views. Like, what do you mean? So yeah, contradictions.
Gary Vee is such a good example because it was like years ago by now, but my girlfriend sends me a screenshot. She's like, there's a speaker at our college virtual event. I think you'd like him. And I'm like looking at the screenshot. I'm like, that's Gary Vaynerchuk. Like, what do you
Yep,
what?
I like him.
One, you don't know Gary Vaynerchuk. Two, why didn't you invite me? But some person who's an alumni at a college isn't going to know Gary Vaynerchuk the way you and I might.
Exactly, but everyone knows Jennifer Lawrence. So it's like, are you famous with a certain group of people for a specific thing? Or are you just famous? I know that I'm I call it niche famous. I'm happier to be niche famous than Jennifer Lawrence famous.
So final question, and it's for recommendations. Other than your channel, it could be YouTube, a book, a podcast. What are you learning from right now? Who are you learning from? What's got your ears?
That is such a great question. What's got my ears? I can recommend some Australian YouTubers that are great.
Cool. Most of
I
my
really
audience isn't Australian, so this is fun for us.
There's some really good content coming out of Australia. So I would say April Clucks, cluck cluck like a chicken. And that's because she's known as the chicken girl. She has chickens and she loves chickens, but she also does like cultural commentary, which is incredible. She's so good at what she does. The second one is Struthless. He's a bit of a bigger channel, so people might know about him, but he talks about creativity. He talks about, I guess, productivity, creativity, art, the state of content versus art. Really interesting stuff. So that's two YouTubers that I always watch and listen to and would recommend to anyone. And then the other things, I just like to read a lot. I read a lot of self-development. So books like The Courage to Be Disliked is one I'd recommend if you're trying to put yourself out there and start your branding and content journey. Great book that will change your perspective. The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. I love that book. That also changed the way that I thought about the world. And anything by Marty Neumeier. He's got a book called The Brand Gap, which is just so valuable. So yeah, 2 Australian channels, 3 books. That's what I will leave people with, and things that have really inspired me recently.
And Theory of One on YouTube.
And Theory of One on YouTube. Yes.
Thanks for coming on, Erica. Again, I think I mentioned this, but like I just found your channel, binge, and now you're on the show just like that. So I appreciate your time, appreciate your heartbeats. I know we learned a lot, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much, Ben. It was so fun chatting to you. You taught me a lot about myself as well.